You're sprawled out, in an economy-class airplane seat, scrolling your phone as cold air blows gently. Looking out the window, the clouds are pure white, and the screen shows exactly what damn coordinates the plane is at. Want to fly halfway around the world? Go online, swipe your card, and boom! The next day, you're in America. You know for sure the destination is a real place, with hotels and blazing fast Wi-Fi. Everything is so easy it's boring. But now, throw your phone, your map, and all your geographic knowledge into the fire. Imagine standing on a windy beach, with waves crashing 60,000 years ago. No Google Maps, no weather forecast. In front of you is only a pitch-black ocean growling all the way to the endless horizon. Every survival instinct in your body is screaming, don't step into the water. Out there is death. Out there is nothingness. And yet, our ancestors, those loincloth-wearing people with stone spears, cut down trees, tied them together with vines, pushed that ridiculously fragile raft into the water, and paddled straight into that realm of death. They had no damn idea if there was land on the other side. What if they kept going and dropped into the abyss? But they still went. Why could a primate with no wings to fly, no gills to breathe underwater, no thick fat against the cold, still manage to conquer every harsh and deadly corner of this planet? The truth behind those great migrations is not a romantic story about backpackers obsessed with exploring wild nature. Keep dreaming. It was a blood-soaked epic of desperation and absolute madness, rooted in the greatest system error in our genetic code. Have you ever wondered why other animals so rarely leave their familiar habitats on their own? Do lions in Africa ever build rafts and swim to Europe for a change? Not a damn chance. The Neanderthals, huge hunters built like beasts, muscles bulging, several times stronger than us, lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. But they never built boats to cross the sea. They found a good valley, full of fat deer, and settled right there. A quiet, stay-put life. But Homo sapiens, our species, was bugged. Deep in the DNA sequence, scientists found a gene variant called DRD47R, jokingly known as the wanderlust gene. It is directly linked to dopamine control. It makes the brain constantly crave novelty, continually releasing signals of restlessness, discomfort, and never being satisfied by staying in one place. When our ancestors were in Africa, even when they had enough food, warm caves, and safe fire, that damn biological algorithm still pushed them to look toward the distant mountains and wonder, what the hell is beyond that mountain? Is there a better land out there? That extreme curiosity was actually a brutal disease. It cost the lives of countless generations of impulsive people who dared leave the trail. They died from ambushed predators, getting lost, and hunger. But the survivors, the most stubborn madmen, were the ones who inherited this entire earth. And the first death trial for that insane gene was crossing the Wallace Line to reach Australia about 50,000 years ago. The Wallace Line is not a paved road. It is an extremely deep ocean trench between Asia and Australia. Even during the Ice Age, the distances between the islands, there were still tens of kilometers of deep, pitch-black seawater, churning with violent ocean currents and swarming with sharks. You could not just accidentally swim across it or drift on a rotten log and hope to survive. To move a human population to Australia and keep it alive, our ancestors had to plan with sophistication. But how the hell do you plan when you have no idea what lies across the ocean? No telescope or binoculars. They only stood on the coast of what is now Indonesia, squinting into the hazy south. They had to hack into nature's system, reading the faintest signals. They looked up at the sky and saw flocks of seabirds flying toward the horizon without returning. With great logical thinking, they understood that birds must land to lay eggs, meaning there had to be land far out there. They saw towering columns of smoke and dust from forest fires or volcanoes rising from the far distance. Based on that fragile scrap of data, they made a crazy decision. Cut down giant bamboo, weave it together with coconut fiber, animal hides, and vines to make the most primitive raft in history. Then they stepped onto it, carrying precious embers, women and children, sharpened spear tips, and launched themselves into the ocean. No sails, no damn rudder. They paddled with bare hands, with oars carved from crooked branches. Around them was darkness, waves roaring. And if they slipped into the water, they became prey for circling great white sharks. How many rafts were smashed to pieces by the waves? How many families lay forever on the deep seafloor? We will never know. But we do know for certain some rafts made it to shore. The fact that loincloth-wearing people set foot in Australia with Stone Age technology is considered one of the most reckless, greatest, and most absurd conquests in evolutionary history. But if you think the ocean was the scariest enemy, you are dead wrong. The most brutal enemy was the cold, the bone-deep cold that froze the blood in their veins and made toes fall off. That is when we talk about the earthly hell of the conquest of the Americas. About 20,000 to 15,000 years ago, Earth sank deep into the final ice age. 1/3 of the planet's surface was covered by a gigantic ice sheet kilometers thick. Sea levels dropped extremely low, exposing a strip of land connecting today's Russian Siberia and American Alaska, called Beringia. Many textbooks paint a rather poetic picture. Ancient hunters in fur clothing, holding spears, calmly walking across this land bridge while chasing plump mammoths. Do not let them fool you. The truth was not romantic at all. It was a bloody hell. We are talking about a permanently frozen tundra. The wind howled with the force of a blizzard that could peel skin off your face. Temperatures fell to -40 to -50 degrees Celsius. The idea of walking here is an insult to the tortures they brutally endured. They had to skin animals, sew the hides with needles made of bone and thread made from animal sinew. They had to smear slimy animal fat over their bodies to fight the bone-cutting cold tearing at their flesh. With every dragging step through waist-deep snow, they faced the risk of ambush by the strongest beasts on the planet: giant short-faced bears, brutal hungry snow wolves, and even cave lions. Many modern scientists believe Beringia was too harsh, so our ancestors used the kelp highway. They built small boats covered in animal hide and sealed with waterproof fat, followed the Pacific coastline, paddled through water cold as knives, dodged giant icebergs, survived by hunting seals, and chewed on painfully salty seaweed. From freezing Alaska, they trudged and paddled along the coast of North America, crossed the dead lands of Central America, and moved all the way down to the southern tip of South America, Tierra del Fuego. A journey of thousands of kilometers through every kind of person. Extreme and terrifying climate, from cracked glaciers to the Amazon rainforest, swarming with poisonous mosquitoes, snakes, centipedes, and wild beasts. They did it not because they had a treasure map, but because that mad flame of curiosity and the fierce desire to survive inside their chests was never extinguished. But if crossing the sea to Australia was the recklessness of people with nothing left to lose, crossing the Beringia ice bridge was a brutal torture of endurance, then the Polynesian conquest of the Pacific was a miracle of intelligence. I swear, this is what really gives you goosebumps. Open the world map on your phone and look at the Pacific Ocean. It is an empty body of water, insanely huge, covering 1/3 of the planet's entire surface. The Pacific is so large that if you gathered all the continents on Earth and stuffed them inside it, they would still fit. The islands here are tiny, like specks of dirt separated by thousands of kilometers. And yet, about 3,000 years ago, the Polynesians left the coast of Asia, boarded double-hulled canoes carved from giant trees, and began entering this terrifying, endless emptiness. No magnetic compass, no astrolabi, no metal. How the hell did they find those tiny islands in the middle of such a vast ocean? The answer is, they read the ocean, the way you read a comic book. Polynesian navigators were the greatest and most badass astronauts of the ancient world. From the time they were snot-nosed children, they were trained to memorize hundreds of constellations and their exact positions in the night sky for navigation. But what if the sky was black with storm clouds and no stars were visible? They used their own bodies to listen to the sea. Expert navigators could lie with their eyes closed in the bottom of the boat, and simply by feeling the vibration of wooden planks against their backs, they could tell which waves were created by swirling winds and which were underwater swells rebounding from an island hundreds of kilometers away. They analyzed tiny changes in the color of the seawater. They dipped their hands in, tasted the saltiness, and guessed where the current was flowing. They watched clouds gather in the sky, because an island, no matter how small, would make vapor rise and form a permanent mushroom-shaped cloud on the horizon. And most ruthlessly, they tracked seabird flight paths. The birds nested on land but flew out to sea to feed, and in the afternoon always flew straight back toward land. The Polynesians followed that living compass and pushed on. They created stick charts using small wooden strips tied together with coconut fiber and shells to mark the positions of islands. With that unbelievable superior organic navigation system, they spread across thousands of islands, from Hawaii far to the north to distant Easter Island in the east, and cold New Zealand in the south, forming a great Polynesian triangle that dominated the entire ocean. We are proud to have put humans on the moon. That was truly great. But Neil Armstrong knew the exact distance to the moon, had thousands of brilliant engineers supporting him, and precise measuring equipment. What about our ancestors? They stepped into darkness with empty hands, with boats carved by stone axes, where falling into the sea meant certain death, relying only on their minds, their courage, and flickering starlight. They crossed roaring oceans that even today, giant, steel-hulled cargo ships sometimes. Fear may flip them over. They crossed dead lands, nature's freezers, places never designed for human beings to survive. They used their own lives as the price to pay for every kilometer on the map. So the next time you angrily throw your phone because your flight is delayed 2 hours or get irritated because Google Maps gives a wrong turn, stop for a moment. Take a deep breath and remember whose blood is flowing through your veins. You were not born from people who loved weak comfort. You are the descendant of the most stubborn, craziest, and greatest beings ever to walk this planet. Those who stood before the rage of the ocean, the brutality of the Ice Age, then smirked and said, "Let me see what the hell is out there." Hit the subscribe button right now to keep decoding with us the harsh, brutal, yet incredibly fascinating truths of this world. Goodbye, and see you in next week's script.